So the title of this live stream is called Cope, How Ukraine Deals with Its Military Defeats. And I got the idea of this live stream title from a recent article from New York Times. And the title is Ukraine's Donbass Strategy, Retreat Slowly and Maximize Russia's Losses. So first, let's get some terminology here. What does cope mean? So this is what I wish I could show you guys. Coping and seething from the Urban Dictionary. Let me see if I could pull it up on my phone. Coping and seething. Here's the definition. When you can't confront reality, so you lie to yourself and get extremely angry about it. So my definition for it, this is it here. Coping and seething, Urban Dictionary. My definition really is when you come up with delusional and false excuses to explain the grim reality. And I think this article from New York Times, which was published yesterday, it's behind the paywall, but it was summarized by a person on YouTube, on X. His name is War Translated. He's a pro-Ukrainian. And he summarized the essence of the article. Ukraine's strategy in Donbass is to slowly retreat while maximizing Russia's losses. To outside observers, Ukraine's withdrawal from Donbass may appear as the beginning of an end game, with Moscow seemingly gaining the upper hand on the battlefield. However, Ukrainian commanders and military experts dispute this. According to them, it is currently a war of attrition, with each side trying to wear down the other by inflicting maximum losses, hoping to break the opponent's potential and the will to continue the war. So in essence, the Western media, and the Western media is relying on Ukrainian officials who tell them that this is their strategy. In essence, they're saying, don't pay too much heed to the multiple military setbacks Ukraine is experiencing on the battlefield, because Ukraine has a strategy. They're going to retreat slowly and try to wear down the Russian army. So there are two main reasons I think this is demonstrably false. One reason is they are, in essence, adopting Russia's strategy that Russia used in 2022 when the Ukraine conducted their twin offensives to Kharkiv and Kherson, which the Western media was salivating over and calling it great battlefield victories, and Russia was on the brink of defeat. And what Russia said they were doing then was really a fighting withdrawal. The same thing that Russia did to Germany in World War II. The best particular example I thought was in Kherson on the left bank of the Dnieper River, where Russia had 2 or 3 defensive lines. And the plan was they would hit Ukraine from afar with their artillery and munitions and inflict heavy casualties because it's open steppe terrain and there's not much cover for the advancing Ukrainian troops. And when the Ukrainian troops get up close, Russia retreats to their secondary prepared defense line. But this obviously requires a lot of discipline and cohesion in the defense, because the retreat has to be in unison. They maintain their line and they retreat to the second line. Because this strategy can easily, obviously, turn into a rout if there's a breakthrough and the Ukrainians are allowed to encircle them. So Russia conducted that fighting withdrawal on the left bank of Kherson and inflicted heavy casualties on the Ukrainians. And I'm going to get into all that later. So Ukraine is now claiming that's what they're trying to do. So the first reason why I say this is obviously false is because the way the Ukrainians have been fighting in the Donbass is contrary to the strategy. They have holed themselves up into these cities like Bakhmut, like Avdiivka, like the recently captured Vuhledar, and they allow the Russians to encircle them on the flanks. They retreat too late, often when the last supply route is under fire control and they take heavy losses. And if you've been following my channel, then I've detailed those battles, especially the last one in Vulhedar, where the Ukrainian soldiers who survived admitted in interviews that they were being hit by Russian drones and artillery as they tried to retreat. So for that reason alone, what this article in New York Times is saying is obviously false. But the second reason is that the whole idea of doing a fighting withdrawal to wear down the attacking enemy's offensive is that you must have a sizable army in reserve so that you can counterattack, because that's the whole point. You retreat, you trade some territory to buy time, wear down the enemy, and you have to have a reserve to counterattack. Again, that's what we saw Russia, the Soviet Union do in World War II after the battles of Kursk and Stalingrad. And that, in my opinion, occurred after the 2022 offensives. We saw the Russian counter-offensive in Bakhmut. Then Ukraine launched another counter-offensive in 2023. And that was the last one they've launched. And since then, it's been an unstoppable, slow, methodic advance for the Russians in Donetsk for almost a year now. So that's one element of coup. The other element of coup I notice, particularly in the information space from pro-Ukrainians and Westerners, even in the articles, is what I call a sense of nostalgia. Because things are going so badly on the battlefield right now, you see this tendency to go down memory lane and talk about the past when Ukraine, according to them, was winning the war. And they talk about, well, at least Ukraine was able to give Russia a bloody nose with the Kharkiv and Kherson offensives and the victory in Kiev and so on. And even when you read a lot of these recent Western articles, the title might tell you Vulhedar fell or report on some negativity on the front line. And the first two paragraphs start off with Russia launched its invasion 2022. They were beaten back by Kiev. Ukraine took back a lot of land in Kharkiv and Kherson, and then eventually get into the article. So this is all part of the coup, because I want to go back to those two twin offensives in the fall of 2022 that the entire Western media and Ukraine claims were major battlefield victories for the Ukrainian army. And I say that they were not major battlefield victories. And in fact, at least as with respect to Kherson, there's an arguable case that Kherson was really a strategic victory for Russia and not Ukraine. So before I get into that, I want to, and this is where I really wish I could share my screen, but I want to define what a battlefield victory is opposed to a strategic victory. And I have this video clip from a US veteran named Dan Castle. He has his own YouTube channel called The Wild Siberian. Some of you may know of him. But he did an interview with The Real Reporter, an excellent video. And I have a clip here where he talks about Kherson and what is a battlefield victory versus a strategic victory.